Wake up, wake up, wake up. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. How y'all doing out there? It's on the Shoulders of Giants live on this good Monday holiday, celebrating Dr. King on his holiday. So we here. We got time, so we here. I appreciate everybody who continue to support what we got going on over here. Thank y'all for being here. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Come on in, come on in, come on in. We got a good conversation today. Got a real good conversation today. I found the video that I've been looking for a while. Sue Ellen Browder is the name of the lady who we'll be looking at in this interview today. Sue Ellen Browder used to be a writer for Cosmo magazine. And what's going on, Justin Rome? Jefferson City, Missouri. What's going on? It's cold. I know it's cold up there. It's cold as hell down here. I'm in Florida. It's cold. It is right now. Oh, it's just turned 43. It was like 30, 32 degrees earlier. It's cold as hell outside. So thank y'all for being up in here. But Sue Ellen Browder used to be a writer for Cosmo magazine. And in this interview on Live Action, the Live Action YouTube channel, she's spilling the beans on the real mission behind Cosmo magazine and how that helped to influence and to spur forward the sexual revolution. We're looking at that, but we're also looking at how it affected the Black community, Black women, Black men, the Black family. Because we can see the state that the Black family is in today. And we're looking at different elements. I know I always say that feminism, sexual revolution, and welfare did numbers on the Black family. Of course, the Black family was already reeling from decades and decades and centuries of attacks by, white supremacy working to break up the Black family. But these were decisive blows that helped to really separate the Black family and where we are. So, oh man, Elijah, how you doing, my brother? Coming in from the UK, England. I appreciate you tuning in. What time is it there? Because it's 11 a.m. here. What time is it there, my brother? Thank you for tuning in. So got a lot to get into today. We're not gonna be here all day, but we're gonna make it count while we're here. So I do want to do some housekeeping. I want to give a good shout out to all my channel members: Robert W, Ram the Don, Sue Paul Umbrella, Samuel Harris, my man John Logical, Trees Like Flowers, Chef CT, Cortez Renfro, Chisel Chipper, A Show About Me, Counter Racism Now, Music 19151, The Rhonda Weatherspoon, CKT 1249, Terrell, my man Terrell, Ron Riley, Patrick Irvin, Drippy Bricks Official, and Professor Carl Tone Jones. I appreciate all my channel members. I appreciate all the people who support me on Patreon, and people who support me anywhere and everywhere. Thank you. Ways to support is in the description. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, it just got 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Man, so good timing. So, like I say, talking about this sexual revolution, right? So today's conversation, we're not trying to, have no shock value, no crazy stuff like that. It's not attacking Black men, Black women, or anybody like that. But we're really looking at the effects of what I would say social engineering that happened. As you can see in the title, the sexual revolution, liberation, or social engineering. So we are using history to take a look at actually what happened. So it's about truth, history, and consequences, right? One of the greatest mistakes we made as a people is confusing intentions with outcomes. We do that a lot. We always say, well, these people's intentions were good, yeah, but the outcomes were bad, and that still matters, especially when it comes to what happened to us, Black people. So in the mid 20th century, America underwent what is now called the sexual revolution, we're told it was about freedom. It was about choice. It was about liberation from repression, right? But women finally gaining power over their bodies and their destinies. And on the surface, it sounded noble. But history demands that we ask deeper questions, because especially for the Black family, the Black community, did we have the same issues as the white community? Did Black women have the same issues as white women? Did Black women need to be liberated from Black men? Did we have some degenerates who was doing some degenerate things? Yes, but overall, did Black women need to be liberated from Black men? Because remember, Black men in America have never been in a position to oppress anybody, especially Black women. Did you have some Black men who were crazy, who put their hands on Black women? Yes. But we all know that that was not the majority of Black men. We know the false narratives that are out there. So the question is, who paid the highest price? Well, I would say the Black family paid the highest price. The sexual revolution did not emerge in a vacuum, right? It was built on decades of ideological groundwork laid by activists, quote unquote activists, intellectuals, publishers, doctors, and political strategists. So people like Margaret Sanger, we know who Margaret Sanger was, eugenicist, Planned Parenthood, who normalized birth control as a social good. Betty Friedan, who challenged domestic life as a primary source of fulfillment for women. Helen Gurley Brown, who will be a main part of our focus today, is on Helen Gurley Brown, who celebrated sexual independence and singlehood as empowerment. She wanted to turn women into a version of men. Also figures like Larry Ladder, and Bernard Nathanson, who helped push baby deletion from a fringe issue into a center of American political life. Says it is important to know Margaret Sanger was anti-abortion and no abortions were performed in her clinics until 7 years after she died. I mean, that's cool, but she still pushed the idea of eugenics, and she still had the idea of us as weeds and we need to be gone. But it may not have, and she may have been that, but we know the overall effects of those clinics now, and we know the numbers and all that. Remember, the outcomes over the intentions. So, but all these, like I said, Margaret Sanger, Betty Friedan, Helen Gurley Brown, Larry Ladder, and Bernard Nathanson all helped push forward these ideas. And there were others, but these are ones that we're going to focus on today. So these ideas didn't just change laws, they changed values, expectations, changed relationships between men and women, especially within the Black community. And they changed how society understood sex, performed sex, responsibility around sex, and the institution of family. But as Black people, we got to take a look at everything that's going on and how it affected us. My brother Ricardo Float, what's going on, my brother? What's going on? So looking at cultural revolutions, right? Cultural revolutions don't impact all communities the same way. Remember, if white people catch a cold, Black people catch the flu. So if white people catch the cold and Black people catch the flu, and we have these shifts, these cultural shifts, these cultural revolutionary shifts that impact family, that impact sex, that impact responsibility, what negative impacts did it have on the white community? What negative impacts did it have on the Black community? When sexual norms shifted towards individualism, delayed marriage, and separation of sex from responsibility, white middle class America had buffers. Remember, they controlled the wealth, they controlled the social capital, and they controlled the institutions, so that gave them institutional protection. Black America, we didn't, because what we are dependent upon white people, and they keep taking everything from us and destroying everything that we have. When we build things, we do build things. When we build as an individual, things that help the system of white supremacy, they don't mess with us. But when we build things that empower us, they destroy it. And once we learn from that, if you build it, you must protect it. So basically, we entered the sexual revolution already burdened by economic exclusion, job discrimination, housing segregation, mass incarceration, and the long history of state interference in Black family life. We was looking to get free from something, some way, somehow. And this seemed to give a light at the end of the tunnel. But remember, we're also, like the last time we went live, we're also understanding that we have the privilege of looking back. We have all this information and experience and privilege of looking back. So when society told women you don't need marriage, when it told men fatherhood is optional, when it told everyone sex is personal, not communal, those messages landed very, very, very differently for the Black community. So this is where the conversation get uncomfortable for a lot of people, because we don't like to talk about what actually happened to us and how it's affecting us even today. So was the sexual revolution intentionally designed for Black people, intentionally designed at Black people? I don't think so, but I do think that there are elements that they understood down the line that would affect us, especially looking at the key players in this. So when movements elevate autonomy over obligation, when pleasure is prioritized over permanence, when reproduction is framed as a burden instead of responsibility, the first institution to be weakened is the family. And remember, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing also, she already told us that we don't have families, we have survival units, right? So the weakened survival unit got these messages, and these messages help further tear us apart. So the time that we taking today, we're not blaming Black women, we're not blaming Black men, but we are looking at the systems, the structures, the messages, social engineering, everything that helped get us to where we are. It's about asking whether we were told a story of liberation or were we living through a reality of fragmentation. So what these thinkers actually wrote and they believed, that's what we're going to be looking at. How the sexual revolution was marketed to women. What's going on, Renee? How you doing? How abortion and contraception were framed as solutions to social problems, and why Black scholars continue to warn us about mistaking freedom from restraint for freedom to build. Because remember, we didn't have the same problems that white people had. Black women didn't have the same problems that white women had, and Black men didn't have the same problems that white men had. Because remember, being responsible adults, we understand that liberation isn't just about doing what you want. It's about creating conditions where families are stable, children are protected, men are accountable, women are supported, and communities can reproduce themselves socially, culturally, and biologically. So this is what we're getting into today. This is what we're getting into today. We're going to leave our feelings at the door, and we're going to open our minds up to learn. I don't know it all, and I ain't trying to say I'm 100% right, and I'm standing here willing to be correct, but we got some information to get to. So Chef TV says, who's supreme over you? Just you. Yep. So this first video we're getting into is, like I said, it's an interview with Sue Ellen Browder, who used to be a writer for Cosmo magazine, who's spilling the beans, especially on Helen Gurley Brown. But all the names that I mentioned, all the players, let me say these names once again. Let me find where I was. Margaret Sanger, Betty Friedan, Helen Gurley Brown, Larry Ladder, and Bernard Nathanson. These are the people who are going to be the focus of these conversations, especially this first video that we can get into, seeing that impact on how it negatively impacted the Black family. Was we intentionally targeted? Maybe not, but I do think there were elements in there that they knew, that they just knew would impact us negatively. So please hit that like button, comment, subscribe, share. Thank you for everybody being in here. But before we get into it, let me run my commercial real quick. So I told y'all I was gonna get my merch shop up and running. So I've got it. So I want to show y'all my merch shop. So this is it. So I got some hats. So I got my own The Shoulders of Giants hats available for order. I have shirts. This is supposed to be like a canvas, some kind of shirt, jersey shirt. I don't know why they got that design, but it's a jersey shirt. Somebody wanted. Got hoodies, regular shirts, heavy, what they call it, the heavy tee, tees for men's, unisex tees for women. everything. I got a mug. I gotta get this mug too. But this is the merch that I have available. See, I got my mug, I have my hats, and I have my apparel available. And all of that is, the links and stuff are below and connected to the video. So I got my merch shop up and running, been working on that for a minute in the background to get my merch shop up and running. So I got it up and running. So if you want to support the channel, get you some merch, it's all available. Links below and links attached to the video. All right. Please like and hype this live. Please. I appreciate you, my brother Elijah. All right, so let's look at Sue Ellen Browder spill the beans on what's happening, or what was happening with Cosmo magazine and everything they had going on over there. Ricardo says, I was a child during the women's movement and the sexual revolution. The white man countered the civil rights movement, the sexual revolution. Many black children, nobody wants to speak. All right, hey, but that's what we talking about today. And that's what we talking about today. That's why we getting into it. So let's do it.
My name is Lila Rose, and I'm the president of Live Action. And I'm so excited to have with us Sue Ellen Browder, a writer and investigative journalist who worked for Cosmopolitan magazine for over 20 years, starting in 1970 and leading up into the 90s. Sue has recently come out with an amazing must-read book called Subverted: How I Helped the Sexual Revolution Hijack the Women's Movement. She's here with us to share more about her amazing book and her story. Thanks for being with us, Sue.
It's a great joy to be here. Thank you, Lila.
So tell us first how you got started in journalism leading up to the time when you started to work for Cosmo.
I grew up in Iowa and I wanted to be a journalist. I went to the University of Missouri School of Journalism, got a great degree, went to California, took a year and worked in a newspaper. And actually at that time, this was in the 1960s, I was actually fired for being pregnant at this newspaper.
So who fired you?
The editors. That was policy. Yeah, it was at the South Bay Daily Breeze.
And what year was that?
That was in 1969.
Wow.
And I didn't know, I had no idea that you'd be fired for being pregnant. But they said you could only work 5 months, and after that you'd have to quit with no promise of having a job when you come back. So I pretended that I was only 5 months pregnant when I was actually 8 months pregnant.
Well done.
And I'm very short, and I was waddling around like an elephant, and people were saying, oh my goodness, really? 5 months?
But the editor outright came and said, you're fired for being pregnant.
Yeah, well, yes.
And I want to address that because it seems it could be indicative of real problems women were facing then and still many are facing today. What was the culture like in the 50s and the 60s for women?
Well, people don't remember how bad it was for women. When women were going into the workforce, they were finding a lot of injustices that they didn't expect. That was only one of them. The women were not paid what men were paid for doing the same jobs. Women were fired for being pregnant. A woman who was a flight attendant, if she got pregnant, or if she even got married or gained weight or turned 32, she was fired. So there were a lot of things. There was a lot of sexual harassment going on, and that's still happening today.
Unfortunately, yes.
That's right. So there were a lot of things. Women in some states could not serve on a jury. A married woman could not get credit in her own name. So this was an entirely different. Women couldn't go to college in some places. It was very hard for a woman. Very few women were doctors and lawyers. Women were shut out of the professions. So this was a time that women were very concerned about a lot of injustices, and they were all pulling together to try to correct those. And when Betty Friedan wrote The Feminine Mystique in 1963, that was the relaunch of the women's movement in the 20th century. She was saying that women were at home, they were bored, they were housewives, they were educated, they wanted to get out and work in the workforce, they wanted their own lives, they also wanted to be mothers, but they wanted the whole thing. They wanted a lot more than that.
Now, I mean, let's run back and what she just said about what Betty Friedan said that women were. They were bored, they were home. That's black women wasn't home board. Majority of black women were not home board. So now the some of the issues that she was talking about earlier, black women were affected by some of those issues in a greater capacity because black women wasn't even, especially black then, didn't have access to a lot of those industries and jobs and things. So we even looking at it on the level of the industries that black women were in and the discrimination that they faced, not at the hands of black men though. Remember that black women didn't face those type of that type of discrimination and things at the hands of black men, and if they did, it was a very, very, very small percentage, because how many black men had control over industries and jobs and things at that time? How many black men have control over jobs and industries now? So think about the number of black men who did not have control over jobs and industries at that time. But let's listen to what she said women were, especially, and remember, she's talking about white women. She's not talking about the conditions that black women were in, because the majority of black women weren't home board, not in those days.
Betty Friedan wrote The Feminine Mystique in 1963. That was the relaunch of the women's movement in the 20th century. She was saying that women were at home, they were bored, they were housewives, they were educated, they wanted to get out and work in the workforce, they wanted their own lives, they also wanted to be mothers, but they wanted the whole thing. They wanted a lot more than they had. And so at that time, Betty wrote her Feminine Mystique book, and everybody went crazy. They said,
now does that sound like the conditions that black women were living in? I'm just saying, does that sound in the early days of the 1900s? In the early days of the 1900s, let's say from 1900 through 1950, does that sound like the life that black women in America was living? So come on now. So remember, let's talk about this whole idea of this sexual revolution, right? So the sexual revolution refers to a broad set of social and cultural changes in Western societies, especially the United States, roughly between the 1950s and the early 1970s. So let's looking at the 1950s. So let's look at let's just say 1950s and 60s, 1950s and 60s, and we can even throw in the 70s, were the majority, or even 50%, or even 20% of black women living in the lap of luxury in America of what she just described. They just home bored and they want to do something different. No. But remember, white women needed black women to be a part of this to help strengthen their movement. But white women also knew that they had the buffers and they would eventually go back. And that's what they did. They went back to their men. But it affected us differently. So, like I said, the sexual revolution refers to a broad set of social and cultural changes in Western societies, especially the United States, roughly between the late 1950s and the early 1970s, that altered how people think about sex, sexuality, and intimate life. It's associated with wider acceptance in premarital sex, increased access to contraception, growing visibility of homosexuality, more permissive attitudes toward pornography, greater public discussions of sex outside of traditional marital context. British and American historians often date its heyday in the 1960s to the early 1970s, though some scholars suggest shifts began after World War II and extended well beyond those decades. So they say major contributing factors to the sexual revolution was the birth control pill, academic sex research by people like Alfred Kinsey and later Masters and John, which challenged traditional assumptions about human sexual behavior, countercultural movements, including anti-war activism, feminism, gay liberation, and the broader questioning of authority and tradition. Also, the sexual revolution as a phrase was also used earlier. For example, in the 1930s by psychoanalyst William Wright to discuss sexual liberation as part of broader cultural transformation, but the mid-20th century meaning is the most common in U.S. history. Scholars debate whether it it was a true revolution or more of an evolutionary shift in norms, but there's a wide agreement it played a role in changing attitudes about sexuality in Western societies. All right, so sexual revolution. So we got a little background on that. So let's continue.
Yes, we agree with this. They all agreed with the women's movement. It was very unifying in those days.
And what impact did Betty Friedan's feminine mystique have on you as a young woman in the workforce in the 60s?
Well, I think the impact that it had was I felt like I could do anything. I really, by the time, see, that was 63 that she wrote that book. By the time I got out of college, it was 68. And 69, I thought I could set the world on fire. And then when I found out that I was going to get fired for being pregnant, I was like, what? Well, this women's movement was obviously for me.
And what interested you about Cosmo? Why did you go for the job?
Well, I was glamour struck. I was a small town girl from Iowa, and I was very glamour struck. But also when I was at the University of Missouri, we had a class where we studied magazines and what were they doing in those magazines? How, if you were going to write for this magazine, what would you do? Magazine markets, it was called. So I chose Cosmopolitan. I was fascinated with these magazines. So then when I got to New York City, the reason I got the job at Cosmo, it was just advertised in the New York Times. I didn't know it was Cosmo. It was just a magazine that you were looking for an editorial assistant. And so I applied, it was Cosmo. And I was like, wow. And there were 18 people that applied for the job, and I got it.
Now, Helen Gurley Brown, the editor of Cosmo, you had some interesting conversations with her, and you learned some interesting things you share in your book about how Cosmo got across a certain philosophy or message to women at the time. Can you share more about that?
Right. She taught that sex without the kids and hard work will set you free. That was Gurley Brown's philosophy. She was had been a copywriter.
Sex without the kids and hard work will set you free. That was her message. Sex without the kids and hard work will set you free. Will set you free from what? Set you free from what? Because we can see now it didn't work. Even because basically this is what this is about. These ideas didn't work, but that's what it was at that time. But remember, they were initially, this came out of a group of privileged white women who ain't had nothing to do, or white women who had these ideas that they were they felt or whatever, they were oppressed by their men. But trickling down to the Black community, sex without the kids and hard work will set you free. That didn't set our community free. It set us back. We got set back. They said, Victor Blackman says, they set the world on fire. All right, feminism is on the verge of collapsing the entire system. Said white women want liberation from white men. For what reason is beyond Black folks, but Black women didn't need liberation from Black men. It was Black men who needed it. Our hands were tied for 5 centuries. Yep. You already know it. Ricardo, you already know it. Victor says, without children and families, there's no, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm always preaching. We need families. We need families. Black men and Black women, we got to find a way to get along. We got to find a way to reprogram ourselves and get along. But we got to understand what happened to us and who were the players and people who helped create this mess that we living in for ourselves. God is Yemen, y'all. I appreciate you being here. How you doing? How you doing? Good morning, good morning, good morning. Helen Gurley Brown. Remember this name. This name is one of the names that is lost in history when we're talking about the major players in helping to push these destructive ideologies. White women always competed with white men for superior, right? Look, so check this out. I'm glad you said that, Renee. You reminded me. So check this out. So I worked in sexual and domestic violence prevention for about 12 years. And I can remember sitting in some of the sessions and hearing some of the white women talk and taking into account the unfortunate relationships that some of those women were in. But listening to some of the other women talk, a light went off. I was like, white women don't want equality. White women want power. Equality is the cloak that they use, but they really want power. They were going for power. And in a sneaky way, they slid that message to black women. Hey, go for power. Go for power. Go to try to overpower your men. But remember, our community didn't have the structure it needed to combat that. And we fell victim to it. And we like the fly in the Venus flytrap, and the flytrap has closed. And we're the fly that has been trying for decades to try to get out that Venus flytrap, and we just can't. So I appreciate you, Victor. I appreciate you, Yemi. I got us, Renee. Everybody in here, I appreciate you all. Yep. That is why they do that to each other. But remember this name. Helen Gurley Brown, because put her right up there with the rest of them.
In California, she was one of the biggest advertising copywriters in the country. She was very good at what she did. And then she took Cosmopolitan, which had been a homemaker's magazine, and turned it into a sex rag, basically.
Sex rag.
And it was very, very popular in those days. Cosmo was the hottest women's magazine in the nation. And that was her philosophy. Hard work and sex without the kids will set you free. She didn't have children. She was married, but she didn't have children, nor did she want them. She said children were more of a nuisance than a blessing. And you could have... Children
were more of a nuisance than a blessing. This is what she's pushing. And remember, like, we need to grow our population. We need to grow our population. Who leads the country in baby deletions? How many baby deletions have our community had since they became possible? I think they said up to 20 to 40 million have happened. Imagine if our population had grown by 40 million over the past 70 years. We would have, well, if we were codified and structured, we would have a lot more power. Because you can't just have a whole bunch of Negroes just out here running around with no code and no structure. But they convinced us to take each other out in other ways, using YouTube language, but you get it. You get what I'm saying. They convince us to participate and being the leading ones of taking us out. Because remember, I call it the Negro programming, right? The white man's greatest invention was the nigga, right? Nigga mindset, Negro programming to be YouTube friendly, right? So with that implanted in the programming and all the social engineering, that's why I asked the question. That's why the title is The Sexual Revolution, Liberation of Social Engineering. How did it affect us? What were we socially engineered into? A. McMill says they're all in the file. Celebrities, elites, politicians, eyes wide shut, elites, ritualistic, cabal, they're all involved. Yep. Hey man, look, even look, on the city level here in Tallahassee, I've paid attention enough. If you wanna get ahead, you're gonna have to give up your booty. And I don't want to get ahead that much. So yeah, I can't do it. I can't do none of the eyes wide shut stuff. Nah. No. But you're right though. Hey man, you're right. But it's like that's all of that comes out of this sexual revolution, this I would call it sexual degeneracy. Because we can see how in that realm we've degenerated. Black people have. Our focus is not family. Our focus is fornication over family, which is crazy. That's not what civilized people do.
You can get married, but you should have abortions, or you should use the pill. And if the pill failed, you should have an abortion.
Can you tell me more how she instructed you and other writers to sell her particular ideology?
We made up a lot of those stories. It was just, for example, a young woman, her name is Mia, she goes to Paris, she meets a man on the Champs-Elysees. That night, they fall in love that day. They go to a hotel on the left bank, and the next morning, she knows that she's in love, it's all beautiful. It was all made up. There was no Mia. There was no hotel on the left bank. It was all
Right.
an illusion. And we created this fantasy world. The Cosmo Girl, at least in the beginning, before a lot of women began to buy into it, the Cosmo Girl was just a sexual fantasy. She was a marketer's dream, however, because she would work hard, and she was on the pill, and she would get an abortion, so they weren't gonna have to fire her for being pregnant, because she was never gonna get pregnant. Okay, she didn't press for working women's rights. She didn't press for family rights. She didn't press for child care. She just worked hard and for the corporation. Basically, she was a man.
So then,
let me run it. Let me let her say that again.
It was just, for example, a young woman, her name is Mia. She goes to Paris. She meets a man on the Champs-Elysees. That night, they fall in love. They fall in love that day. They go to hotel on the left bank, and the next morning, she knows that she's in love. It's all beautiful. It was all made up. There was no Mia. There was no hotel on the left bank. It was all an illusion. And we created this fantasy world. The Cosmo Girl, at least in the beginning, before a lot of women began to buy into it, the Cosmo Girl was just a sexual fantasy. She was a marketer's dream, however, because she would work hard, and she was on the pill, and she would get an abortion, so they weren't gonna have to fire her for being pregnant, because she was never gonna get pregnant. Okay, she didn't press for working women's rights. She didn't press for family rights. She didn't press for child care. She just worked hard and for the corporation. Basically, she was a man.
So
turning the women's in. Does that sound familiar? I got to be the man. Dutch, I'm not familiar with that sorority. Eta Upsilon Gamma has a badge with skull and bones and a Masonic. Yeah, I mean, look, all them folks. Look, all of these people. Once again, where my names at? Where my names at? All of these people. That's what I'm saying. Like the overall outcomes, because these are people who help shape society. So the Black community may not have been their focus, their target, but they understood their impact, and they understood what overall long-term outcomes were, because these were people who studied this stuff. They just didn't haphazardly do this. Once again, Margaret Sanger, Betty Friedan, Helen Gurley Brown, Larry Ladler, and Bernard Nathanson. She gonna get into all of them. We're getting into all of them. I got information and little tidbits on all of those people. So yeah, like, I'm glad she's spilling the beans. Because we can get into the people who help architect and construct the debauchery that we live in to this day. Social engineering is real. That's why they call it systematic. That's why Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, Neely Fuller, all our scholars say it's a system. It's not on the individual level, it's on the systematic level, so it can systematically destabilize us. Yes, individuals can rise up within the system, but the masses won't. It's not designed for the masses. So check this out. Who started the sexual revolution? Intentional figures and forces. It's important to distinguish routes from drivers. And remember, Sue Ellen Browder just told us that Helen Gurley Brown, one of her real missions was to make sure that they turn women into men. You're going to be the marketer's dream. You're going to work hard, you're going to play hard, you're going to hunch hard, and you're going to spend a lot of money. You might have a family, forget them kids. You work hard, spend hard, punch hard, and be the realest man you can be as a woman. Said real women's empowerment is equal opportunities, equality in society, balance, natural sexuality, and paid family leave. We get rid of this white supremacy stuff. We can get somewhere, because we have always been more egalitarian. Black folk, we have always been more egalitarian. Now, Black folk under the system of white supremacy, Black folk under colonial ideologies, the colonial rule, we can, yeah. We got some black folk that's treating black women messed up. We can all admit that. We can all admit that. We ain't gonna act like, there wasn't no sucker ass black men out there. There are. It's a lot of sucker ass black men out there. But what we also understand is the social engineering is real. We have been specifically programmed to go against each other. So that's why we're here to fight the power, fight the programming, and make sure that we can get along and build, because we have to elevate from survival units. We're still operating in survival units. We have to elevate from survival units to get back to creating families, for ourselves. So you got people, scientific and intellectual influences within the sexual revolution. People like Alfred Kinsey, his research on sexual behavior in men and women showed that many America's sexual behaviors didn't match public norms, helping legitimize sexual research. Masters and Johnsons did their clinical studies on sexual physiology, published in the 1960s, pushed sexuality into scientific and public conversation. Psychoanalytic thinkers and counterculture writers, Wilhelm Reich and others, influenced young activists and intellectuals. Cultural and technical drivers were the pill, approved for contraceptive use in 1960. Feminist movements, second wave feminism emphasized women's autonomy over their bodies and sexual lives. Gay liberation and civil rights activism expanded definitions of sexual identity. And we can see how civil rights was hijacked. Civil rights in this, because a part of this was the hijacking of civil rights as well. So yeah, remembering that. So there's also somebody named Shulamith Firestone, who was a radical feminist, who was described as a radical feminist, argued in The Dialect of Sex in 1970 that true equality required dismantling biological and family structures that tied women's oppression to reproductive labor. Firestone's work was seminal in feminist theory and shows how access to contraception became tied to ideas about dismantling traditional family roles. So Shulamith Firestone was instrumental in helping to push the ideas of dismantling the traditional family role. And a lot of people, I hear a lot of people talking about because the term nuclear family is used. So when the term nuclear family is used, the idea is that white people created that, and white people created the man, woman, and child. No, man, woman, and child has existed with black people, with people. That's how you create families, man, woman, and child. Everybody had the concept of man, woman, and child. It just, a name was put on it at a specific time called the nuclear family. But man, woman, and child is how humanity came in. All societies celebrated man, woman, and child. We can go back to ancient Egypt and see they have the celebration of man, woman, and child. Aset, and Heru, what they call the Trinity, the true Trinity, the Father, the Mother, and the Child, has been celebrated. Don't let white folk fool you now. That's why we here doing what we doing, learning what we learn. Don't let these white folk fool you now, right? Don't let the term nuclear family bog you down and be like, white people created that. White people the first ones to have the man up. Man, woman, and child is how humanity got here. Yes. So Sean Akira, yep. I agree. But let's let them keep going. Please hit that like button, y'all.
So it would make sense. I mean, Helen Gurley Brown's sexual revolution then, what was abortion to them? How did abortion fit in with their plan?
Well, first of all, Helen Gurley Brown, I don't know if she ever had an abortion. She did not get married until she was 37. She was married for 50 years to the same man. But the reason abortion fit into her plans of the way women should get ahead was because she was selling the life that corporate America wanted women to live. you know, so that they could have women working, but they wouldn't have to mess around with all that.
So in that way,
stuff.
Pregnant women and moms were an inconvenience to
Helen
Gurley Brown, just like they
Right.
were to a lot of employers.
There was a secret that nobody knew, is that mothers were not actually in the magazine. You never saw a mother in the magazine. You never saw a child in the magazine. You know, propaganda is half-truth, selected truth, and truth out of context. It isn't just a bunch of lies. And one thing that people don't recognize about propaganda when they look at it is look for the things that aren't there.
Helen Gurley Brown never promoted family. And like she's saying to herself, a family was never in Cosmo. It was always the single woman, the dreamy woman. They always made, as she said earlier, they made up these fantasy stories. They made up these stories about these women who lived these lives and did all these things. The single woman who had all of these romances and all these things that helped shape how we look at romance and how we look at society now. You know, even the concept of romance is something that was created as a marketing tool to get people to buy stuff more. I believe the concept, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the concept of romance was created to sell more diamonds or something, or marriage was promoted. But I know the concept of romance is not something that just came out of nowhere. It was like created. So, you know, all these ideas that were being pushed forward, looking back now, seeing how it affected us. But at the time, it was sold to Black women, and once again, putting ourselves in people's shoes at that time. They were looking for freedom, looking for liberation, looking for a way out, and it seemed like a good way out for them. So trying to have some understanding in our looking back, and not just wagging our finger at people looking back, because we can look at a lot of the mistakes that people are making today that we're going to be able to look back 70 years from now and be like, oh man, those Black people in 2025, 2026 was crazy. Same thing like we would say then. So putting things in context. So yeah, we don't agree with the outcome, and we don't agree with the decision that they made either, but we have the information and the context to look back to come up with that conclusion. Now, did everybody at that time agree with this? No. And were they a number of Black women and Black people, Black families pushing against this? Yes. People just didn't listen, just like people didn't listen to Dr. Claude Anderson, seeing how we here now. So history is telling us that Black people in America en masse don't listen when people warn us about what's happening. When our scholars, our leaders, our intellectuals give us information, the masses of Black people don't listen. But why? Why don't we listen? The social engineering is real. That's why. The programming is louder and more potent. Well, the program is louder and seems to be more potent than the actual solution, because the solution will help clear it all up. But the solution, the way it's presented, is not as beautiful as the poison that's being presented. And you've been taking the poison for so long. Why give up on this beautiful poison that tastes good and make you feel good, even though it's messing you up? But it tastes good and make you feel good. So why give up on the poison for this bitter solution that will actually make you good? So, you know, beautiful lies spread further than ugly truths. But I'm glad she's spilling the beans. And like Goddess Yemi, y'all said, please, let's get these likes up. Thank you. Thank you all.
The things that were invisible. The mother and the child was invisible in the Cosmo Girl philosophy.
So Helen Gurley Brown, she has this magazine. There's no kids, there's no women, there's no pregnancy. It's about sex, it's about products, it's about this materialism.
Right.
How did that flesh with her own lifestyle? Because from all accounts, she married one guy and expected him to be faithful to her and lived her life out with him.
Right. They were married for 50 years. Remember, she didn't get married until she was 37. And Helen said that this was the way she had lived in the beginning. This is how she got so far ahead. She urged young women to sleep their way to the top. Sleep with the boss if he's a married man. And she said, it's good.
Let us say that again.
Him to be faithful to her and
let us say that again.
Lived her life out with him.
Right. They were married for 50 years. Remember, she didn't get married until she was 37. And Helen said that this was the way she had lived in the beginning. This is how she got so far ahead. She urged young women to sleep their way to the top. Sleep with the boss if he's a married man. And she said, it's good to sleep with a married man.
Women sleeping with her married husband. So that was more other
that
people.
Was different.
That's crazy. That's crazy. She's encouraging women to sleep their way to the top. Encouraging women to go sleep with the boss, even if they married men. Hey, just go out there and just bust it wide open. Hot girl summers ain't new, huh? Hot girl summers ain't new. She was telling, hey, you want to get to the top, you got to give some top. Helen Gurley Brown as well. The Monica Lewinsky, the office secretary, that prototype. We can see where it comes from. We see where that comes from. We can see where the archetype, the archetype. We can see where the archetype comes from. Helen Gurley Brown. Hey, you wanna be on top, you need to be on top. And you need to bust that thing wide open. You need to have them Megan knees if you really want to get there. But isn't that like counter to the ideas of like feminism, in the sense of you supposed to be able to free yourself, or you supposed to be able to advance without busting it wide open? So isn't that counterintuitive to some of the ideas that go with feminism? Why isn't that seen as oppressive? Like for to be a woman to make it to the top, you got to bust that thing wide open. That's not empowering. That's not liberating. How is that liberating? Because your success is directly tied to how well you bust that thing open and how often you bust that thing open. That's not liberation. But okay.
Live that lifestyle. Not her and her family.
Not her family, not her husband, especially not her husband.
What did Betty Friedan think of Helen Gurley Brown and Cosmo?
She thought Cosmo was quite obscene and quite horrible. Betty Friedan said that the women's movement was about a woman's personhood.
There we go.
And she said that Cosmo, which was turning women into a sex object, was denying women's full personhood. So to turn woman into a sex object was not at all what she had in mind. She was fighting for equal respect and dignity in education
Ricardo.
and the workforce. So these two were two radically different movements. When I was at Cosmo sitting there, I could see that. I mean, Helen Gurley Brown would have loved to have been part of the women's movement, but Betty Friedan called Cosmo quite obscene and quite horrible, and even at one point called for a boycott of the magazine.
Wow. Betty Friedan wrote that landmark book, Feminine Mystique, but she wasn't the first feminist. She wasn't the founder of the women's movement. Can you share more about some of the original feminists and the early feminist movement in the United States?
Well, the suffragists, they fought to give women the right to vote. And Alice Paul was a Quaker. She was widely credited with being one of the ones that got women the right to vote in the constitutional amendment. There were also Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. And so these women were very pro-life, pro-family. Betty Friedan talked in her book about being very pro-family. She was saying that women needed to combine work with family. She wasn't saying, abandon the kids, go out and work and never come back. She was saying we needed both.
So Betty Friedan, do you see her and her feminine mystique as an extension of the earlier women's movement? Alice Paul, Susan B. Anthony.
I think she felt that she was doing that. I know when there was a meeting and the old suffragists were there, she was very, very pleased and very, very excited.
You had said that Betty Friedan called Cosmo quite obscene and quite horrible. And that's because there's a personhood element in the women's movement of Friedan, and the earlier women's movement is about women's liberation, women's full identity, instead of the cosmopolitans' view of just their sexuality and getting ahead in a material way.
That's exactly right. There was one thing that they all had in common, though. Betty Friedan did have a very materialistic understanding. When she listened to these women at home who were having so many problems, she immediately concluded that if they just got out and got a job and made some money, they'd be happy. Well, we've seen the results of that philosophy. That hasn't actually materialized either.
Right. Especially in our community. Just going and climbing the corporate ladder not going to fix things. It actually tore us further apart. It actually tore us further apart. Because now you really have black men and black women fighting for power and position now. You really have black men and black women fighting for power and position. And then it comes to the notion of, well, we don't need it. We don't need you. Well, we don't need you. We don't need you. We don't need you. I can take care of myself. I can take care of myself. But then we all in the middle screaming about white supremacy. We all got a problem with white supremacy, but on the back end, I don't need you. I can take care of myself. I don't need you. I can take care of myself. Well, yeah, adults are supposed to be able to take care of themselves, but damn it, we need each other. Life was not meant for us to go through this alone. And if you want to think about it. If I'm a bad mama jamma by myself and you a bad mama jamma by yourself, and we come together with the understanding that we need each other, we two bad mama jammas together. So think about how we are creating and producing and empowering, especially we have a common goal. We come together in love, understanding that we standing in love and we need each other and we got each other's back, and we doing this for real with real intentions and real common goals as a couple. Oh man, imagine the magic that can be created. And that does happen when black people do that. But it's counter to these ideas that we don't need each other. Because when it comes to, hey, I can take care of myself, I don't need you. I can take care of myself, I don't need you. Then it comes to strengthening survival units, strengthening single parent households, strengthening or increasing the number of babies that are born out of wedlock. They're not born within the marriage. They're not born to two people who are married in the household, who have the idea and the goal to keep it together. Because family is more important than all this stuff. But they reprogrammed us. That's why I say the sexual revolution, liberation, or social engineering.
But
Yes.
she was anti-Cosmo.
Oh
Betty
yes,
Friedan.
oh yes, because
Right.
she was the whole
Only
sexual
taught in our
revolution
community.
and the women's movement were two radically separate movements. So when you ask, why did you write this book Subverted? Well, when I was sitting there and I saw that they were two radically separate movements, how did they ever get joined together? How did we get to the point where there's so many women today, young women especially, who think that to be liberated is go to college, get a great degree, have a fantastic career, and be as sexually free as possible?
Who that sound like? Who is that message was repackaged, refined, and distributed specifically to black women.
Oh
Betty
yes,
Friedan.
oh yes, because she was the whole sexual
Let
revolution
us say it again.
and the women's movement were two radically separate movements.
Right.
So when you ask, why did you write this book Subverted? Well, when I was sitting there and I saw that they were two radically separate movements, how did they ever get joined together? How did we get to the point where there's so many women today,
it went
young
by
women
accident.
especially, who think that to be liberated is go to college, get a great degree, have a fantastic career, and be as sexually free as possible? How did those two get joined together? Well, that was the question in my mind that led to writing in this book.
So
I'm just you just dropped this comment, Goddess Jimmy. You just dropped this comment and then she said that. Just dropped that, because that's, go to TikTok, go to Instagram, go to YouTube. That's the rhetoric we hear all day. I got my degree, I got my job, I got all these things here. And of course that's not, I've always said that that's a loud minority. I've always said that that's a loud minority, but I'm the black dude. I'm the black man that get told I hate black women. They tell me all the time I hate black women. They tell me all the time I hate black people. I hate black women, and I'm a Republican because I speak the truth. I see what's going on and I speak the truth. I read history. I study history. I see what's going on. Like, come on. Now, why is that minority loud? That minority is loud because the system is going to elevate any negative message. System of white supremacy will promote any negative message that will help further keep the black people apart. Yeah, them people hate themselves because they think if you're afraid of truth, you got to hate yourself if you're afraid of truth. And no matter what you say, white women, because think about this lady is telling us that white men and white women help architect these movements that help destroy families, especially the black family in America. This white woman, Sue Ellen Browder, is telling us about Helen Gurley Brown, Margaret Sanger, Larry Ladder, Nathanson, all these women and men who help architect these movements, these intelligent, strategic, intentional white men and women who help architect these movements. Come on. No matter how much you say that, all they heard was you telling me not to do what I want to do, as if these ideas are original. And that's the thing. So many black people think the things that we're doing are our original ideas. Well, I'm just expressing myself. I'm just being myself. You're not being yourself. You're not being yourself. It's not an original idea. You just knew and you don't understand what's going on. That furthers the agenda of white supremacy. You dang on right, Renee. Yes, it does. It furthers the agenda. It helps keep us apart. It helps keep us fighting. The divester movement that's online, of course, it's going to be promoted. Any black man that's online promoting foolishness is promoting this stuff toward black women will be elevated. Black men who are speaking truth, we stay being shadow banned. I stay being shadow banned over here because I be speaking truth. I be dropping videos like this. I stay being shadow banned. I'm not a simp. And I'm not a sellout. And I'm going to speak the truth. And if people don't like it, so what? Because like I say, they tell me all the time, you hate women. I know you hate women. How I hate women? How I hate women when I'm actually empowering women in real life. What about you? That's what I tell them. That's always my comeback when they say that. I just ask them, well, tell me about 2 women that you have actually really empowered in real life that have tangible outcomes. Tell me 2 of them. And right. Because I can give you a long list of women that I empower on a regular basis. So who really hate women? What's going on, Kush? Welcome, Kush. What's going on, Sue Paul? I'm messing your name. I'm sorry. But welcome, my brothers. Welcome. It's early. But we here, we getting it in. We're exposing these white women and these white men who help architect this sexual revolution, which was a major contributor to the breakdown of the black family. And she's spilling all the beans. And we got names from major players who helped mess this thing up for us. 6 p.m. in Italy, man. Oh man. It's 11. Well, it's 12 now. It's 12. Oh, y'all 6. So y'all 6 hours ahead. That's what's up. Y'all 6 hours ahead. That's what's up. Man, it's cold as hell over here too. I'm in Florida and it's cold as hell. But family. We're so far away from family, it's crazy. But let's let her keep snitching though.
How do you think we should look at Betty Friedan and her feminine mystique in regard to abortion, which the early women's rights movement was opposed to?
She never mentioned abortion or contraception in her feminine mystique. She was fighting for women's freedom in academia and the public square, in the workforce. In fact, Betty Friedan had been fired herself for being pregnant in the 1940s.
So tell me how it went from Betty Friedan writing The Feminine Mystique, not even mentioning abortion, as you say.
Thank you, Renee.
To
I
being the
appreciate you.
president of the National Organization for Women and inserting abortion on demand in their Bill of Rights.
That's a good question, because what happened behind the scenes
Umbrella,
was there was a man. There were actually two men, but one man named Larry Lader, who people have never even heard of him today, but he was the co-founder of.
Remember that name. Remember, this is one of the names. This is one of these. This is one of the people we talking about. Write that name down. Larry Lader, deletion activist. Larry Lader is a deletion activist. So remember the names again. I'm going over the names again. Margaret Sanger, Betty Friedan, Helen Gurley Brown. 3 people she's already talked about. Now she's bringing in Larry Lader, and she's going to talk about Bernard Nathanson. Write this name down. Know these people. It's 12 degrees in Columbus. Man, I wouldn't even go outside. I couldn't even go outside 12 degrees. It's now 7 degrees. What could, hey man, I ain't going nowhere. I wouldn't go outside. Wow, look, I hate winter. I do not like winter. I do not like winter. But I pray everybody staying warm. I pray everybody staying warm. Larry Lader. Remember this name.
NARAL, the National Abortion Rights Action League, which was originally the National Association to Repeal Abortion Laws and is now NARAL Pro-Choice America. You see how those names shift depending on what the climate is. You know, this is the way propaganda works. But anyways, Larry Lader co-founded NARAL with Bernard Nathanson, who was an abortionist who claimed to be responsible for 75,000 abortions before he saw a baby on a fetal monitor and realized this was a living human being, changed his mind, became very pro-life. So these two men, Larry Lader and Bernard Nathanson, had founded this organization.
They helped push
Larry
the baby
Lader
deletion.
knew Betty Friedan very well. They were magazine writers together in New York. Larry Lader had graduated from Harvard University. He was fairly independently wealthy. He had lots of time on his hands, and his greatest passion was to make abortion legal. And he worked on Betty Friedan for years
you already know
to try to convince her to insert abortion into her list of demands as a woman's right. And the first thing that he did that helped convince her that abortion was a woman's right was he wrote a book. And here it was actually what I call a masterpiece of propaganda, because it's full of half-truth, selected truth, and truth out of context. Now look at the subtitle of this book, Abortion. The first authoritative and documented report on the laws and practices governing abortion in the U.S. and around the world, and how, for the sake of women everywhere, they can and must be reformed. Now that is
God's gift to women. Larry Lader.
Right. That's right. Now for years,
Delaware,
Larry Lader
Ohio,
tried to convince Betty Friedan that women needed abortion to be free. And Betty Friedan didn't buy it. She didn't see abortion as a woman's right. It just didn't even cross her radar. But
so that's Betty Friedan, Feminine Mystique, the founder of the 20th century.
So we got a lot of trees here. Trees are starting to get cut down. We got a lot of trees here. It's still this is a pretty rural area. My city, Tallahassee, is like the only city part in this whole North Florida area. So it's very rural. So it's still a lot of trees. So the air is still okay.
Women's movement, mid-20th century. And then you also have Larry Lader. Before he wrote Abortion, he was a good friend of Margaret Sanger's, the founder of Planned Parenthood.
Founder of Planned Parenthood. In fact, he was Margaret Sanger's biographer, and he said that she was the greatest influence in his life. And so she was teaching him population control, how to control the population. And he bought into that hook, line, and sinker too. But the one thing that Margaret Sanger did not agree with him on was abortion. Larry Lader, his greatest passion was to make abortion legal. And he thought that that's what we needed. First of all, what women needed to be free, but second of all, what the population controllers needed to keep the population down. If we were going to have all this sex, the sexual revolution was running rampant, well, you're going to have to do something, he thought, to keep the population down.
So Margaret Sanger was strategic. So Margaret Sanger herself did not believe in baby deletions, but she believed in population control. So I'm not stupid. That's just a covert way of making sure that that it happens, but she's not directly tied to it. She was his mentor. She inspired him, the dude who wrote the baby deletion book. She inspired him to push baby deletions, even though she herself didn't push it, but she pushed population control. And like she said, so if you're out here having all this free sex, and if you ain't using contraceptions, and if it's to the windows, to the wall, to the sweat drop down somebody's balls, all skeet, 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 skeet. That's how babies get made. And if you don't want the baby, then you're gonna have to do something. So I'm not stupid. Yeah, so Margaret Sanger, you might not have directly been the person who pushed it, but you push population control, i.e. you push it. So let me give you a little information on all of these people that she's talking about. So Margaret Sanger was the birth control pioneer, American nurse, writer, and activist who pioneered the modern birth control movement. Her core beliefs and activism believe women must have control over reproduction to avoid poverty and unsafe abortions. I didn't mean to say that word, but baby deletions. Coined the term birth control and launched the Women Rebel in 1914 to challenge laws barring contraceptive information. Founded the American Birth Control League, the precursor to Planned Parenthood. Worked to repeal anti-contraception laws and normalize contraception information, making birth control legally and medically acceptable. Remember, she was also a eugenicist, and she said Black people were like weeds and we need to be exterminated. Her work shifted public conversation about women's sexual autonomy and reproductive decision-making long before the 1960s sexual revolution. She expanded sexual agency, framed not simply as morality, but as health, independence, and social progress. Some associates, so controversies associated with her is some associates and policies aligned with popular early 20th century eugenicist ideas and widely held, but now it says it's now discredited, but we know she was tied to eugenics, to the eugenics movement. We know that. Critics highlight how birth control campaigns targeted poor populations. Supporters argue Sanger's intent was to reduce suffering from unwanted pregnancy because she was about population control. Betty Friedan. She's a journalist and feminist author of The Feminine Mystique, which was published in 1963, which critiqued the limitations of women's roles as homemakers. Her ideological contributions argued that dissatisfaction among men and women was caused by a lack of meaningful outlets outside the home. Helped ignite second wave feminism, a movement focused on equality in work, education, and legal rights, and social roles beyond domesticity. And remember, she was an opponent of Helen Gurley Brown. So political activism and baby deletion for Betty Friedan. She co-founded the National Organization for Women in 1966. She helped launch the National Association for the Repeal of Baby Deletion Laws in 1969, which later is NARAL, Pro-Choice America. Her early book, The Feminine Mystique, did not advocate for baby deletions. That came later as the feminist agenda expanded. Helen Gurley Brown, longtime editor of Cosmo magazine. Her influence on sexual norms, Sex and the Single Girl, which was published in 1962, encouraged women to pursue careers, success, financial independence, and sexual pleasure before or without marriage. She redefined how many young women view sexuality, love, sex, and money as compatible goals. Remember that. She refined how young women view sexuality, love, sex, and money as compatible goals. Young Black girls are not excluded from this. Her impact on culture is she popularized the idea of a glamorous, single, sexually autonomous woman, often called the Cosmo girl or the city girl. We call them city girls now at our or Sexy Red or Cardi B or all of them that's pushing that, Foxy Browns, Lil Kims and all that, right? Her editorial voice normalized discussions of sex outside marriage to a culture that had previously resisted stressed restraint. So we do need to get back to making sure that our young ones are having sex within the marriage. I'm so against the idea of young people between the ages of 20 and 30 need to go out there and have as much sex as possible to get the experience, to get it out their system or whatever. Women having their whole phase, men just going around skeeting it everywhere. Like, I'm so against that. I'm so against that. As someone who was taught that, as a young dude who, when I was coming up, some of the older guys, they basically taught us that we need to go conquer the world with our meat. I took that to heart when I was a jit. When I was in when I was in high school and college, I was trying to hunch everything that was looking at me. Until an OG pulled me to the side with some reprogramming. Reprogramming has to happen. We got to pull our young jits to the side. So I try to pay that forward. I try to pull as many young dudes to the side and be like, hey man, don't you respect yourself? Because I tell young dudes all the time, think about it. They tell women to respect themselves in their private parts. Why do you think you shouldn't respect yourself in your private parts? And as I'm talking to him, I'm talking to myself as well. Why do you think they don't tell men to respect our stuff? Why do you think you should just give it out like that? So you think every woman that got a big booty is worth your stuff? Reprogramming. We got to reprogram ourselves. We got to work hard. We got to get hard. We got to work hard to get back to looking at sex as something sacred rather than something we just do because it's fun just to get that itch scratched. Look at what it has done to our community. And once again, as somebody who fully indulged, I fully indulged, but I have nothing to show for it. I can't put that on no damn resume. I can't put on no resume, hey, the ladies like me. Who gives a shit? You can't even get a job at Wendy's with that. Who gives a shit? It doesn't help. Doesn't help us grow. Doesn't help us mature. Doesn't help us connect. Doesn't help us love each other. Doesn't even help you love yourself. A lot of that comes out of low self-esteem. A lot of us dudes are out here trying to smash everything moving because we got low self-esteem. Because that's how we were taught that we would become somebody. Nah, you can't put that on your resume. So right. We got to get right, man. But it's like that's where we are. So, but let me continue reading. I had to get on my soapbox for a minute. Let me continue reading. Larry or Lawrence Ladder, he's the baby deletion movement strategist. He was a journalist and strategic activist in reproductive rights movement. He co-founded the NARAL with Bernard Nathanson. He persuaded mainstream feminist leaders like Frieden to include baby deletion rights in feminist platforms. He argued that control over procreation, including baby deletion, was essential to women's liberation. So, hey man, look, we gotta get right. We gotta get right. He wrote Abortion in 1966 and Abortion 2. Those are the books. Promoting baby deletion as a civil right and part of sexual freedom movements. Hey, but we got us men, we got to grow up and we got to give our young dudes different messages. Like I said, I had an OG who pulled me to the side and he was like, young bruh, why don't you just try being friends with women sometime? Why don't you just try to not, you can't get them all. Why don't you just try to be a human and treat them like humans and just be friends sometimes? I was in college and a light bulb went off. And when I tried it, and when I not tried it, but when I implemented it, it felt like all the pressure was lifted off me. Like, man, or I can just interact with you without thinking something's supposed to happen. Good. But it took an older man with some sense to reprogram me from some of the foolishness that I was taught when I was young. All right, so Bernard Nathanson, he was the co-founder of the original National Association for the Repeal of Abortion Laws. That's what NARAL is, the National Association for the Repeal of Abortion Laws. A pro-choice leader who argued for legal baby deletion to protect women from unsafe legal procedures. He worked directly with Frieden later and others toward Roe v. Wade era legislation. After the advent of the ultrasound, he became anti-baby deletion after the ultrasound, arguing that baby deletion exploited vulnerable women and advocating for policies that supported women with options other than baby deletions. So, hey, that's what we got to do. We got to grow up. The only way we're going to get our community better is to learn, grow, and implement. And understand where these messages came from. Now we have a better understanding of where these messages came from. These messages came from white people who didn't have our best intention. These messages came from white people who were hell-bent on destroying their families and understanding the full intent on how it would destroy our families. So continuing with those mindsets will be continuing with white supremacist mindsets, ideologies, and ways of living, and white frameworks to continue living like that. White supremacist frameworks. We got to be better. Let's keep going.
So you have Betty Friedan writing Feminist.
There you go.
Not talking about abortion as a means to advancement for women. You have Margaret Sanger running Planned Parenthood, but not pushing for abortion at the time. And then and
remember, that's why they just repealed Roe v. Wade recently, because they realized they were deleting a lot of their community as well.
Larry Lader, in the years before the Supreme Court decision, Roe v. Wade. And he's this man who knows both Friedan and Sanger. Yes. And he writes this book saying, actually, ladies, abortion is the way to go. Can you share more about what you shared in your book, Subverted, about his book, Abortion?
Right. So he wrote this book on abortion, and Betty Friedan thought it was really quite a wonderful book. And so he began to convince her that this was something that women needed to be free. He had begun to convince her. And then when she was having troubles with the National Organization for Women, she was beginning to lose control. There were a lot of young radicals coming in and screaming and yelling. And there were also, so she was having two problems on two fronts. She was losing control of the National Organization for Women, and she was also trying to get her Bill of Rights passed through to Congress. She was creating a political Bill of Rights that would guide Congress for women. That's what she was trying to do. And Larry Lader convinced her that she needed abortion to get all her other rights accepted by Congress. Remember, this is a time that women are being fired for being pregnant, so they can say to the businessmen, don't worry about it, guys, she'll be on the pill.
White women mostly. White women being fired for being pregnant. White women. Because remember in this conversation, she's framing it from the white woman's world and the white woman's standpoint. Because remember, early in the conversation, she talked about women who had the luxury of staying home and were bored and just wanted something else to do with life and all these things. That was not the majority of black women. That wasn't even probably 90%, probably 95% of black women in America in between the 50s and the 70s.
And if the pill fails, she'll have an abortion. So you're fine. You can pass all these other rights. You can give mothers the right to work and all of this. You don't have to fire women for being pregnant because they won't be.
So right? this vision that Lader had, this wealthy white man had for abortion in America, he ended up succeeding because can you share about how National Organization for Women eventually did put abortion into their platform?
Okay, Larry Lader told Bernard Nathanson, who is his co-founder of NARAL, that they had to recruit the feminists because it couldn't be just men promoting abortion. That would be too obvious. So they had to recruit the feminists. And once they convinced Betty Friedan to insert abortion into the women's movement. Then after that, abortion just took off like just.
Let us say it
about
again.
guys. She'll
Let
be
us
on
say
the
it again.
pill, and if the pill fails, she'll have an abortion. So you're fine. You can pass all these other rights. You can give mothers the right to work and all of this. You don't have to fire women for being pregnant because they won't be.
So
right?
this vision that later had this wealthy white man had for abortion in America, he ended up succeeding because can you share about how
a wealthy white man was the architect or the main force behind pushing baby deletion in America? A wealthy white man. Just let that sink in, but listen, continue to listen. That's why I ran it back.
how National Organization for Women eventually did put abortion into their platform.
Okay, Larry later told Bernard Nathanson, who is his co-founder of NARAL, that they had to recruit the feminists because it couldn't be just men promoting abortion. That would be too obvious. So they had to recruit the feminists, and once they convinced Betty Friedan to insert abortion into the women's movement, then after that, abortion just took off like just amazing. It soared, and then we had the Roe v. Wade. If women were demanding abortion, oh, this was something new. Men didn't realize that women wanted abortion. Oh, okay, well, I guess we'll do this then.
At one point you describe in Subverted, Larry later is in a car with abortionist Bernard Nathanson, and they're having this fierce debate about whether or not to recruit the women's movement, the feminists, to the abortion cause.
Larry wanted to recruit the feminists. Bernard Nathanson was afraid that if they recruited the feminists, that they had all these wild-eyed women pushing for abortion, the judges and legislators, who are mostly white men, would dismiss the abortion cause. So he said that if women were defending abortion, it would actually set their cause back.
So
That's
these
what
men are trying to scheme about how to get women to support abortion.
Right.
And they're worried about how they can control the feminists in convincing male legislators.
It's all about look, that's crazy. That's crazy work. This crazy work. Thank you, Tara Williams, for the $10 super chat. I appreciate you. Salute frontline warrior, brother Joseph. Thank you. I appreciate you, my sister.
Look at all this money, homie. I got all this money, homie.
Thank you. Like, that's crazy. Now black women are the unfortunate face of deletions. Right. Took the words right out of my mouth. Right. Let's let her say that again.
Fierce debate about whether or not to recruit the women's movement, the feminists, to the abortion cause.
Larry wanted to recruit the feminists. Bernard Nathanson was afraid that if they recruited the feminists, that they had all these wild-eyed women pushing for abortion, the judges and legislators, who are mostly white men, would dismiss the abortion cause. So he said that if women were defending abortion, it would actually set their cause back.
So these men are trying to scheme about how to get women to support abortion.
Right.
And they're worried about how they can control the feminists in convincing male legislators.
That's right. And if male legislators see all these wild-eyed women fighting for abortion, they thought maybe that would set their cause back, because all those legislators and judges were
right.
white men.
But it ended up working because because Justice Blackmun ends up quoting Larry later.
Right.
And they didn't even need the legislature.
Right.
They had the Supreme Court.
Well, you see, the thing of it was, there were so many rights in the women's movement. There were legitimate justice, fighting for legitimate justice. And again, what they did was they plunked that abortion into the middle of all that, and it was hard for people to separate it out. That's one of the things that they do. They bundle things together. That's one of the propaganda tools. Bundle things together so you can't separate the good from the bad.
That goes back. I think Ricardo had a comment earlier in reference to Kamala Harris in that, because it makes me think about this past election, and that's what one of the main things that they were standing on is baby deletions. And they were black women baby deletions, black women baby deletions, black women sexual revolution, black women free yourselves, up to having Megan Thee Stallion and Glorilla and all these other degenerate women who represent what these women are talking about, you know, pushing these agendas. Hey, this is freedom. These are your rights. These are your rights. This recently just happened. This recently just happened. You said it sounded like Bill Gates doing vaccines on people in Central Africa. Yep. Man, look, we got to understand. That's why we should always understand the root of everything before we get into it, how it affects us positively, negatively, all that. Who are the people that architected this stuff? White men were behind all of this to make sure that the society is going the way that they want it to go. Social engineering is real. Social engineering is real. We're looking at a conversation of a woman who's giving all the tidbits about social engineering. Wow.
And that's what happened in that
Yep.
case. And so it was before the National Organization for Women embraced abortion, it was only a white upper class men's movement primarily.
And that was Bernard Nathanson, a co-founder.
Abortion was a white upper class men's movement until they convinced women that they need to take it up as their cause. White upper class men. Why would white upper class men have an abortion? Have abortions? I didn't say the word enough time, but baby deletions, something that's relevant to them, something that they would push. What they out here? Well, we know what they out here doing. We know what they're out here doing. But then to make it something that women take on and it's tied to women's rights and women's liberation, this is what you need to do. Keep snitching, Sue Ellen. Keep snitching.
Narrow, upper class, white male.
Right.
Alan Guttmacher,
Right.
who presided over Planned Parenthood when they actually came in support of publicly of abortion.
Write that name down. Alan Guttmacher, eugenicist, OBG. Oh, he would be an OBGYN. He looked like he old creep. He looked like when he was 13 and he learned what an OBGYN was, he started planning. He started plotting when he was 13. Write that name down. Alan Guttmacher, eugenicist, OBGYN, president of Planned Parenthood. That boy looked like you better hide all your kids. Yeah.
And
He was a doctor.
he was a doctor after Margaret Sanger. So
Right.
these three were really core to
Yes.
pushing abortion into the women's movement.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. Especially though, Bernard Nathanson and Larry Lader, who knew Betty Friedan. And so there was actually a night, and it took me a long time, a couple of years actually, to find this night. There was actually a night when abortion was inserted into the women's movement. It was on November 18th, 1967, in the Mayflower Hotel in the Chinese Room, when about 100 people, mostly women, but a few men were there, and they were going to vote on the National Organization for Women's Bill of Rights.
And this was after Larry Lader had many conversations with Betty Friedan. He had already published his book, Abortion.
Right.
And now they're getting together. And tell us what happened that night.
Okay, that night it was wild. There were 8 rights that they voted on that night, and most of them, 6 of them passed unanimously, and are about rights we would all agree on. There were things: women should have equal pay for equal work, women should not be fired for being pregnant, women should have equal access to educational opportunities. These were all things that everybody agrees on today. There were only 2 rights that night that they fought over. One was the Equal Rights Amendment. Now, why did they fight over that? Well, one woman who was very articulate said, and she was a civil rights attorney, said human rights are indivisible. And if you separate women's rights out from other people's rights, you've destroyed a lot of things.
They're not indivisible.
They're not indivisible anymore. And
we all share the same rights.
She said we're all persons,
Yes, we're all
right?
persons.
And you see, But what you see what Roe v. Wade did was they did separate out women's rights from men. I mean, look at the mess it's made. But anyway, we're gonna go back.
And that seventh, you said there's 7 things that were determined,
right.
and the 7th was the one that caused the most controversy that night.
The 8th.
The 8th.
Yep.
The 8th.
It was
Ricardo,
the last right to be
think about
fought
that
over
bag.
that night, and they fought until almost midnight. That was the abortion right. People, it was wild. People were screaming. Now this is the founders of feminism in the 1960s. This is not a bunch of radical anti-abortionists. These are the feminists fighting over abortion. And some of the things they said in that meeting, because I got the minutes to the meeting, were things that people are seeing today. One person said, "I'm against murder."
So this is a group of mostly women,
Right.
after Later's book, before Roe v. Wade,
Right.
after the book Abortion, and Betty Friedan is presiding for over the National
Yes,
Organization
she
for
is.
Women, and they're deciding their Bill of Rights. And you're saying the hottest debate that they had that night was over abortion.
That's right.
And there were many opposed, as there were others arguing for it.
They were fighting for it nonstop. There were a lot of people opposed. In fact, they were so opposed that at least 1/3 of those women walked out and later resigned from now over the abortion.
They completely left the
They
organization.
completely left the organization. And so what you had there that night, behind the scenes, something that's never been reported except in this book, Subverted, for the first time, is that you had pro-life feminists leading the National Organization for Women and pro-abortion feminists staying. And then you got to the point when if any woman was for abortion or against abortion, she was kicked out of the organization.
And shortly after that night, Betty Friedan came out with a statement on behalf of NOW and saying that she was speaking on behalf of all women,
Yes, she did.
saying that Abortion Now was the platform, abortion on demand. Later on, it would be abortion on demand without apology. Can you break that down for us? How
Social engineering like a mug. Little young baby thug. What's going on? That's a hell of a name, Lil Young Baby Thug. Nah, that make me laugh because I always said if I was a gangster rapper, my name would be Lil Young. Nah, what's going on though? But social engineering like a mug, man. Social engineering. So basically, the victors of the fight came out and were able to structure society the way they wanted society to be structured. They had hold on. I don't stretch video. Okay. But they engineered they were in there fighting for power, basically. To sum it up, groups of white women, handful of white men who have these various ideologies and things in there fighting for power. The ones who won were able to shape society the way they wanted society to be. And society is what it is today. And it's extremely backwards, and it's especially backwards for us, right? Because think about it, right? These figures contributed to cultural and legal shifts that made conversations about sex, birth control, and reproduction less taboo. But there is no credible evidence that these individuals conspired to plot against any one group or the families, but we can see all the outcomes, right? A broader sexual culture became more permissive and centered on individual autonomy. Individual autonomy, not group, but individual. Legal reforms expanded contraception and abortion access. Feminist activism linked reproductive choice to wider emancipation goals, right? We just heard that. Access to contraception gave many women, including Black women, greater control over family planning, but it didn't. It didn't give them greater control over family planning. It gave less control over family planning because a lot of the babies were made that they were not planned. A lot of the babies that were made were unplanned, and a lot of that led to a lot of the deletions and stuff. So the idea was it gave them greater control over family planning, but it gave them less control over family planning because we know most of the babies in Black America today are oops babies. We know family planning doesn't happen in Black America on a regular basis. Structural inequalities, poverty, discrimination, healthcare access, or lack of healthcare access have done more significant effects on families. In addition, with these cultural trends, So a lack of healthcare access, increase in poverty, experiencing discrimination, plus these cultural shifts are happening all at the same time. These are complex things that are happening at Black people. Scholars emphasize complex interactions of economic, legal, and cultural change, along with these ideological influences, help shape Black America to where we are today, right? So the books and the writings and stuff, The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan, which was published in 1963. Sex and the Single Girl by Helen Gurley Brown, published in 1962. Larry Ladder's book Abortion, published in 1966. These are three of the main texts that help shape these ideologies. So
that decision made that night by a handful of women ended up being the statement for all women.
Well, that's what happened. She came out. Now, there were only 57 people in that room that voted for abortion that night. But Betty Friedan knew how to control the press. And she came out, that was on a Saturday night. On Monday morning, she came out with a press release that she handed out to all the newspapers that said she was speaking for millions of women around all over America, the working mothers who wanted to get back into the workforce, college women, all these working women. She claimed to be speaking for every working woman in America, when in fact she was only speaking for 57 people in the Chinese room. And this was a closed door meeting. The press didn't see it. And so they bought it. And then the next day, the Washington Post ran a headline showing the abortion vote. They were headlining the abortion vote. And they said, now embraces the sexual revolution of the 20th century.
So they saw
socially constructed, socially engineered by a group of 57 people. And the victors of those came out and was able to shape how society was going to operate. Lil Young Baby Thug, excuse me. What's the 9 to 5 movie? I don't know what that is, the 9 to 5 movie. What is that?
That they didn't even see abortion as much as they saw this is the sexual revolution.
That's right. They saw it as the whole package. Because so at that point, in the media's mind, in America's mind, the sexual revolution and the women's movement were joined together completely.
Over abortion.
Over abortion, because of abortion.
Even though Betty Friedan still saw Cosmo as quite horrible and obscene.
Yes, she was a very confused lady. She had been, but see, she was a utilitarian. She was ready to do anything to get her Bill of Rights passed. And when Larry Lader and Bernard Nathanson convinced her that she wouldn't get her other Bill of Rights passed unless she had included abortion, she said, okay, she was a utilitarian.
Would you say that abortion was the key for the sexual revolution to hijack the women's movement?
Yes, that was certainly the beginning. Then it was.
I didn't see the 9 to 5. 9 to 5. I don't know what 9 to 5 is. If it's a movie, yeah, I've never seen that movie. I'm gonna have to look it up.
Farther until they got into all sorts of sexual politics, but certainly abortion was the open door.
And specifically, Larry Lader influencing Betty Friedan
Correct.
and Roe v. Wade.
Correct.
Can you share more about his book, Abortion? It's out of print now. Very few people even know about this book. You said there's a lot of half-truths, truth out of context. Can you share more about that?
Well, for one thing, it was very, very hard to sort out all the lies that he told in that book. Because again, propaganda is not just a bunch of lies, it's half-truth, selected truth, and truth out of context. But if you just look at, for example, the statistics, he said that there were 1 million to 1.5 million illegal abortions every year. Well, that was totally fabricated.
And later on, Bernard Nathanson even said we fabricated those numbers.
Yes.
They wild. And so, okay. So it says, office satire about 3 female secretaries who decide to get revenge on their tyrannicals. Sexist boss by abducting him and running the business themselves. The trio, one of whom has been passed over for promotion because she is a woman, spend a night together having drug-induced fantasies of unaliving the slave-driving chauvinist. One of them panics the following day when she suspects she really has poisoned the tyrant. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to look into that. Now, so we're not gonna have enough time to get to everything that I want to get today. So I'm gonna pick this conversation up on Saturday, because I have my live together for tomorrow. For Tuesday night, I have it together. So this conversation will be picked up on Saturday. And by then, I have a lot more information on the 9 to 5 movie. See if I can even find a clip or two or something from it. So, but I appreciate that, little young baby thug. I appreciate that. Said Dolly Parton and the European Ensemble offering some of the first visuals of the women in the office. Gotcha. Yeah. Appreciate that. Nah, I appreciate that. Definitely gonna have a part 2, because I have a whole nother video I want to show, and I see we ain't got enough time to get to it today. So it's definitely gonna be a part 2 on Saturday.
He did. They fabricated the numbers. And the same way they said that women were dying, you know, all these women were dying of abortions. In fact, they knew that it was fewer than 300 that had died from abortions every year.
Sounds like they took a page out of the Cosmo playbook to make stuff up.
They did. They were making stuff up. Well, that's what one of the reasons I wrote this book is I had gone to a conference where Bernard Nathanson spoke, and he told us about all the lies that they had told to sell abortion to the American people. And then I had also written an article on Alfred Kinsey, who was considered the father of the sexual revolution, and all the lies that he had told. He made up a...
Remember that name. Remember this name, Alfred Kinsey, the father of the sexual revolution, biologist and sexologist, of course, scammer, schemer, social engineer, all that. Alfred Kinsey.
A lot of stuff. It was very fabricated
and very horrifically abused children during his so-called studies.
Exactly. So and I realized that if Kinsey had lied, and if the abortionists had lied, and if we at Cosmo were lying, then the whole sexual revolution was
a lie.
Wow.
It was all lies.
Damn.
And then we sold it to the American people through more and more lies. And
Lil Young, thank you for joining the On the Shoulders of Giants family. You're gonna love it over here, my brother. You're gonna love it over here. Yeah, because they look, it's wild. The whole sexual revolution, and even now feminism and all this stuff was built on lies. It was built on lies to construct society the way they wanted it to be, the way they saw fit. Hey man, we keeping it real over here. Please hit that like button.
Through the women's movement. That's right. Through the women's movement, the sexual revolution was sold to the world, the whole world.
I found it striking reading Larry Lader's out-of-print abortion book, which I want you to share more about in a moment, was quoted multiple times by Supreme Court Justice Blackmun in the Roe v. Wade decision.
Right.
But in the book, he didn't even talk about abortion in the sense of a child existing, maybe the child having rights, considering that the child might be a human being that's growing.
No.
There was almost fascinating, no discussion of the embryo of the fetus. It was focused instead on this so-called already established need for abortion.
That's right.
Why was he so obsessed with abortion?
Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
Well, he said he was also obsessed with the sexual revolution. He wanted the sexual revolution to succeed. And he said to mess with abortion would turn all of sexual morality upside down.
So if you could get legal abortion, he was saying sexual morality goes out the door, was his position.
That's right.
If you can get rid of the baby, you can go bust it wide open. You can walk down the street with your lips hanging out. You can walk down the street with your butt hanging out, with your nuts hanging out. You can walk down the street with your areolas hanging out. You can be busting it wide open. I saw scrolling through Instagram yesterday, and it was a video from Kev on Stage. It was a video from Kev on Stage's Instagram. And you know, him and Tony Baker got the Ball Brothers comedy tour going on. and it was they were interviewing. They had this young lady on the chair on this. Let me see. Hold on, let me see if I can play it. Listen to this.
Something absolutely wild about your life that no one would believe just from looking at you.
I had sex with 2 guys in one night.
This lady is in a wheelchair. This lady is in a wheelchair saying this.
Lovey, tell us the story, girl. Ain't nobody told me nothing.
What happened was, okay, so I was kicking it with one dude.
Okay.
And I didn't get the premium pump.
Oh, you didn't get
Hold on, Lovey said I didn't get the premium pump with old boy. I'd have had I'd have got out the chair for you and you give me the unleaded. So she said I didn't get the premium pump. So did you know in the moment? Thank you, Tata.
You didn't get the premium pumps from the first dude.
From the first guy.
You was unfulfilled.
Right.
Was y'all in this chair?
No. No.
You don't be smashing in the
No,
chair?
ain't no room.
I would be on the bottom. I'd be working the controls, and then you on top. But we riding tough. If you riding me, we ride. First dude didn't measure up.
Right.
So do you go home in between or was he at
No,
your house?
I was at my house.
So you kicked him out.
No, he left. I was like,
She was the Mama Friday. I'm gonna see you later, Lovey. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Then after he left, did you go pull your phone out like Charles?
And did.
Lovey! Charles, pull up. So you called the other dude over. He got no idea.
Right.
He smelled the room like.
This is an older woman in a wheelchair.
He was already in here. He's like, nah, man, it's always like that.
There were some hours that had
Oh,
gone
you
by.
got some time back?
Yeah,
Took
so
a
it,
shower.
Watch a few episodes of Judge Judy. Like, let me
yeah,
relax.
you know, the room cleaned out,
But
all
you feel
that.
frustrated, like, man,
Exactly.
Let me ask you this, Lovey. How you get him to come over and he know what's what?
Said, hey, what you doing? Nothing, watching TV. Okay, well, come over and watch TV with me.
okay.
And that's all they need.
And then when you come to the house, there ain't no TV in the room.
So that's enough of that. But that, like I said, like nobody made her go up and tell that story. Nobody made her go up and tell that story, but it's the way of the world now, right? It's how we get down. It's how we function. An older black woman in the wheelchair made it a point to go up on stage and tell everybody how she got bust down twice in one day by 2 different men. Shout out to the sexual revolution. Shout out to the sexual revolution, because look how far it has brought us. Yeah, she thought that was cute. That was disgusting. That was wild. It's crazy. Like, so if that's an elder, if that woman is an elder, why should the kids' behavior be better or even respect elders if this how our elders getting down? If the elders are out in the community telling everybody about how many sexual partners they had, how they having sex and doing all these things, grown men and grown women out here doing that, why should we expect our kids to be any better? You're supposed to have hot girl summers and YNs running around, especially because look, it was this was all architect. It was all created by people in the room to make sure this is how we operate. Come on, man. And it's like, remember, like Kev on stage not supposed to be the Christians. Remember? Kev on stage supposed to be the Christian. And then on stage, talk with a grown woman in a wheelchair, talking about how she had sex with 2 different men in one day. But Kev on stage is also one of the ones who buy into these ideologies as well. I listen to him. I've listened to him enough. I don't have nothing against him, no shade against him, but he do buy into these ideologies as well. He support these ideologies. He support these far, and these, we call them nowadays, we call them far left-wing ideologies. That's what we call them nowadays, far left-wing ideologies. But we can see they wasn't just manufactured by people on the left. They were manufactured by white folk, period. No matter the political affiliation. So, the rest of this conversation is in the description. The link to the rest of the conversation is in the description. This is wild, man. But I'm so glad I found this clip. I'm so glad I found this clip. We might end up finishing this on Saturday, plus showing everything else I have to show, and then adding in the 9 to 5 movie, things that I can find from that. But look, man, all I be trying to do is make sure I can provide the information for us to think and come up with our own conclusions. I ain't trying to tell nobody what to think. I ain't trying to make nobody think nothing. I just want to put the information out and help people come up with their own conclusions. You can agree with me or you can disagree with me. Cool. But you heard what you heard. And you can take and do what you feel with that information, but you heard what you heard. Helen Gurley Brown was a writer for Sue Ellen Browder was a writer for Cosmo. Helen Gurley Brown was the editor of Cosmo and one of the main manufacturers of this. You better think for your damn self. If you ain't thinking for yourself, something wrong with you. That means they got you programmed. Go read 1964. Thank you, James Mitchell, for the $5 super chat. I appreciate you.
All this money, homie. I got all this money, homie.
So let's see all these names. Let's go back through these names. Because Goddess Yemaya has logged all of the names. Alfred Kinsey. She's logged all of the names. Alan Gutmacher. We know we got Sue Ellen Browder. We know we got Margaret Sanger. We know we got Larry Latter. We know we got Alfredson. Log these names. Remember these names. Write these names down. Study these people more. These people help architect the society that we live in today. Oh, Valdosta, Georgia. Oh, man. The country out there. I appreciate you, James. No, thank you. Log these names. Go back and watch this from the beginning. If you came in late, go back and watch this from the beginning and get all the names. We're going to finish this video on Saturday. We're going to pick this back up on Saturday. Tomorrow, we're talking about, we're looking at a conversation that was on Dr. Ma'at's channel. A young man came up on there trying to infer that Africans were the progenitors of the transatlantic slave trade, trying to make it seem like because indentured servitude was happening in Africa, that was the catalyst to the transatlantic slave trade. So, gonna be helping Dr. Ma'at and them debunk that tomorrow at 9 p.m. Make sure you show up. Tuesday night, 9 p.m. But Saturday, 3:30, we coming back, part 2 of this, because she dropping all the beans. And we gonna make sure we picking them up and letting them know what's going on. So I appreciate y'all. Gotta go get me something to eat and finish up my day. And it's cold outside. Go warm up. So I appreciate all of you. Link to those full videos in the description, and the link to the video that I was trying to get to is in the description as well. We're gonna get to that next week. But now that we know, let's do better and let's apply what we know. Learn to be better, do better, and apply. All that. Got to be better. Got to be better. Much love. Peace to all of you. Kush. Kush calculating. It's 2 a.m. now. Oh man. Now Kush, I really appreciate you for being up at 2 a.m. being the greatest moderator on this YouTube street. I appreciate you, my brother. Yes. And it's cold outside. Like the song said, when it's cold outside. So y'all warm up. Make sure y'all be safe. Let's continue to connect with each other, build with each other, and grow. Thank you, Goddess Yemaya. I appreciate all of you. I love y'all. Let's be our best Black selves every day. And let's go out and make change in our communities every day. Love you all. Take care of yourselves. I'll see y'all tomorrow night, 9 p.m.